Hello and welcome to Separated by Water. My name is Paul Galt. I'm a Nottingham Forest supporter. I'm joined today, as always, by the other half of Separated by Water, Colin Campbell. Colin, how are you?
Okay. I'm nervous, but still, we'll probably explain why shortly.
Yeah, well, I just want to say there, the narrative by all the press seems to be around Spurs in the relegation zone. I guess that's because you haven't really been here for a long, long time, Colin. We're used to it. Leeds are used to it. West Ham probably used to it a bit better, more than you guys are. You have appointed De Zerbi. Tudor is gone. You've had a week, just over a week to think about it. Are you any happier with the appointment of De Zerbi, or where are you on his appointment?
Well, I'm happy with great respect. I'm happy that Tudor has gone. I think he shows absolutely nothing. God help him. I'm very, very sorry about the passing of his father at the time of the Forest game, or around that time. But we need to do what we need to do. So Roberto De Zerbi has come. He was on the radar of certain clubs allegedly over the last few years, and Pep Guardiola, whom I greatly admire, has spoken highly of him. His career started okay. Palermo in Sicily, beautiful island. Don't know about the football, uh, and then it fell away badly from there. Benevento, uh, but it really came through Shakhtar Donetsk, the Ukrainian team. He did well there, and that brought him to the attention of Brighton, and he replaced the remember Graham Potter. He replaced him. I've had a really good season, a really good half season, and then a very poor second season. I wonder who that reminds you of. Uh, who and got right into Europe, for the first time. A lot of good stuff there, good football. I think he was frustrated at Brighton's transfer policy, where some top players, McAllister, Sato, and so on, were sold off and replaced by a guy who needed maybe a wee bit of time, to make up that distance. Left there and went to Marseille. He finished second in first season there, which is remarkable, given PSG own that thing now. Marseille had fallen back, and that was good. But then in his second season, he had some early defeats, and he resigned, I think, a mutual consent just after Christmas. So around the time Frank was let go, but it appeared at that time Spurs were interested, but he was not, because he needed a break. Little did he realise how short that break would be. His tactics, he seems to be attack based. They talk about a deep double pivot. What does that mean? 4-2-3-1. I think it means keeping people out of the wide, trying to create space for themselves, hoping that the two inside midfielders get the ball and move it quickly. I like.
Can I stop you there? Can I stop you?
Yeah,
Can I ask? Does that suit your squad? Is it going to suit
no,
your squad?
I'm not sure
Right.
it does. Um, I'm not sure. It depends how much of a departure it is from what we thought Igor Tudor was playing, which was a mystery to me sometimes, frankly. I'm all for a back four, particularly with the players we have. We played with that last season, closed the door in Europe, and although we very few of them ever fit for a long period of time, we now hopefully we can get the best out of Romero and Van den Ven at the very least the rest of the season. It is that has a flat back four, a back four anyway, and I think that would be a strong point, possibly with Solanke up front and Richarlison and Tell. Whoever's fitting in behind there. I think there's room for Paulino there on a defensive midfield position. So he may be able to make something, South Perth out of a size here. Yeah. I'm told a couple of players are coming back, but we'll see how that
Yeah,
goes. But
I've heard
on
that.
that point, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to. This season seems to be had a litany of managers who've arrived in the Premiership, wanted to inflict their system onto teams or onto the Premiership, and wouldn't be flexible, like Amarin with United and so on and so on and so on. Um, if it doesn't work, if his system doesn't work, do you think he's the type of manager that will say he's enough in his box to say, I'm going to change this just to get
Yeah,
us saved, and then next year look at something different?
it's a good point. Because I think, first of all, in the interview, presuming he had an interview, Hopefully they still do old-fashioned things like these at Tottenham, where he convinced the board or the owners that he was the man to save us. That convinced them that he wasn't going to spend 6 months imposing a philosophy on a team which is about to go down. That said, I watched an interview with him, which I found was interesting, and he was asked about his football philosophy. He said, "No, no philosophy at the minute. We need to be pragmatic." And words to that effect, we need to work out what we need to do now to stay up, and then we'll talk about that later on. And that heartened me, because the last thing we need is another purist coming in talking about his philosophy when we're heading down the drain, So from that point of view, does it make sense? Yeah, I think there's, where do I stand emotionally? I'm too old now. I'm too tired. I've been knackered this season. It's hard to get worked up about anything in a positive way. Probably I had been thinking of a inverted commas safety first Harry Redknapp type. And I could see why people would criticize me for that opinion and say, well, he's too old. And who are these guys, pundits who think they're going to come in and solve the ring? I understand that too. Whereas De Zerbi's been in the business now, live, so to speak, for quite a few years. So on balance, yes, I'm excited about it. Based on what he said in that interview, I like the fact that he was being pragmatic. So we'll have to work out what keeps us up here.
I don't want to talk about Mason Greenwood, but I do want to talk about the fact that he talked about him. He worked with him in Marseille. I thought he would have been better dodging anything to do with him to get his feet under the table first. But did you feel that was clumsy, or what do you feel?
No, well, what I saw, let me be clear. I realize it's a highly sensitive issue in which we all have maybe feelings and views and so on and so forth. And I have genuine respect for anyone's point of view about matters like this. And I certainly have no time for any violence against anyone, particularly women and vulnerable people. I'm on record for that. But in terms of the interview again that I saw, De Zerbi, probably after advice, had decided to address the issue, take it head on. And he spoke on this occasion in Italian, his native tongue. I think that was good because he was able to use the words and the nuances that were important to him so that he could not be misinterpreted. And I read the translation on the screen. And along the lines, basically what he was saying is he covers himself. He would never consider any condoning of such terrible behaviour by anyone. He was advised about the situation with Greenwood and decided that, the football thing came, we'll give him an opportunity. Now, they may not know as much as we think we know about the situation. You don't say, well, you're innocent until you prove guilty. Well, that's not necessarily always the case. I think De Zerbi, for me, I'm not going to judge him as a person or as a football manager because of that decision. I know people are trying to stoke it up by saying that, he's going to bring Greenwood to Spurs. I don't see that happening remotely. I really don't.
I'm not trying to stoke up in any way. I'm more interested in, would it be more pragmatic for him to avoid the thing completely and just...
I know what you mean, Paul. I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult to avoid something like that. When people, prestigious fan groups have come out and condemned him and judged the whole thing and said they won't be back. I'd be very disappointed about that because that meant that the person in question wasn't able to give an explanation or to, give their side of the story of what happened. And I think that's disappointing generally. From my point of view, I'm ready to see, certainly his views on the world and behaviour and so on will be under the spotlight, I suppose. But I genuinely hope that it's his skills as a football manager and motivator that come to the fore from now on. And that's what we'll talk about.
Okay.
And that in his own way wins us all back.
One word answer: excited or worried about his appointment?
On balance, excited.
Excited, okay. Because there is a really mixed opinion base on Spurs supporters. I've been listening to them all week and with interest. You could barely turn on the radio without hearing something about Spurs coming on. So, yeah, I don't know. Some
Yeah,
people seem to think that it's a panic. Some people seem to think that they're planning for next year, no matter what happens, and maybe not looking seriously enough at what's happening at the minute with the relegation battle.
yeah,
I think that by Opta, which is the company that projects what's going to happen in the league, and it's all a bit of
yeah.
a mixed bag, really. I don't know how reliable it is, but they have the league ending as it is at the moment, with yourselves one place above West Ham, ourselves one place against above you, and Leeds one place above us. So as it stands, if they're to be believed, and at the minute I'm grabbing onto anything, I nearly ask people,
Okay.
how do you think it's going to end?
Yeah,
Hoping they'll say Forest will be fine, because that's what I want to hear, you know.
yeah.
But let's
Okay.
assume, Colin, that you are going down. Let's assume you go down, and I hope it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. Financially, it's going to cost you. The last figure I heard discussed in detail was 261 million. It'll cost you in all the various effects. How do you recover from that? How do you get back from that if you do? You
Well,
know,
two ones. Yeah, yeah. How do we recover? Well, the easy answer is don't. The answer after that is that we recover by having a whole new ownership who are prepared to throw money at it and make up the difference as best they can. And that may or may not happen. You know, if Spurs do go down, and say what it will cost them, it also wipes a lot of their value. And these people who were sitting there tee and thinking, they're making a fortune out of Spurs, all of a sudden may not be. And there's almost a painful sort of pleasure in that. Uh, Spurs then have to, if they go down, we hope they get up immediately and no one really notices that we're ever away, and we come up and buy well. De Zerbi is the man. He takes us. We walk the championship in my dreams, and with a different manner. Say we do that, we go back up after one season, and there's a lot of investment goes into the club in the same way that Abramovich had done to Chelsea and at Hollywood City, and less so to Newcastle and Forest. But there was an injection there. We brought in 3, 4, 5 top class players who did change the complexion. So Spurs would have to want to do that. And that will either be with this current crowd or with a new crowd who sees the opportunity when the stakes, so to speak, are lower, and come out and try to buy the club and then turn them into something like a Manchester City or whatever it might be.
Talking about this new crowd, is there somebody interested? Is there people?
I think there's always somebody interested. The world's markets, are like that, and people will be watching. I mean, I know enough about some friends in college who work in this kind of business, and they're eye on everything. And it's not soccer management; it's salt or sugar or oil. God saves, but you know what I mean. These things are all commodities. They're commodities, and Spurs are a commodity like anything else. And some people may see this as an opportunity. What we of course hope is that anyone who comes in sees it as more than that, and it becomes like a labor of love, in the way that a lot of investments put into City with their, and City aren't a perfect model in many ways, but they're a good one to look at and see where they talk about their youth academy, or somewhere in the future they may be self-sustaining in terms of producing players. I don't think that will ever happen for any team, because rare gems are exactly that. They're rare, and they may have to be bought. But if you buy fewer, you never know. That would be my dream. The other one is that Spurs could turn into, the next level would be to turn into kind of a Sunderland or Leeds. No disrespect, but you'll know what I mean. These are massive teams who aren't massive anymore. They're just not, whether we like it or not. Yeah. And Sunderland are having an Indian summer at the minute, but let's see how long that lasts. But I wish them all well. I'm trying to make a point that they were once great teams who aren't there anymore, right? Or you could go the other way and you could become a Bolton, Preston, a Barnsley, teams who had been up there. And Barnsley may not a good example. Bolton and Preston possibly are, because they won leagues and they won cups and they played in cup finals. And they had star players in their day.
Ironically, I have something to tell you about Spurs. Ironically, you always talk about this ground that Levy left you. This could be your saviour, Colin. This could be your saviour. I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
Because they got the agreement was 16 non-football days could be held at the
yeah.
stadium. That's now been up to 30.
Uh-huh.
Their 16 was making them 55 million. Their 30 will now make them above 110 million. Now
Yeah,
that
but
no other club in the country.
make who?
Sorry,
Make who?
Spurs.
You see, yeah, but Spurs
The
won.
company.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is, if the company wants to get back up in the Premiership, they have 110 million to play with. The other clubs like Forest that don't have. We can generate that income
well,
from the ground we have.
yeah, we might have, but I mean, there's a lot of ifs in there and buts because we've seen it all before, and there's no guarantee at the minute. There is no guarantee, despite what I've said and my hopes, that they would invest any more money from greater income than they currently are, either literally or comparatively, and that's the problem. So yeah, the ground could stay
I'm
us in that.
saying, Colin, sorry, I can't let you brush that aside.
It's
They
not
have
stupid.
they have got the earning capability from the ground for 30 non-football days. If that is a
Yeah,
company who owns a football club and they put that money, they organise these days and they generate income from it, and they put it, and if they put it back into the football, but that's the only if I see there is if they put it back into the club,
well, you
then
keep
you have a
saying
better chance than NBLs of retaining players,
that.
and coming back up again.
And you've read the poem If, you know,
Do you
and
take the point?
if we, Spurs fans about, if we'd done that, or if we'd won that, or if only we had it, if we hadn't played Harry Kane from the start of the final, or if we signed so and so, or if and that's a problem. Whether they will do that or invest more money. Sorry, not more money. The amount of money that would be required to bring Tottenham up, keep them up, and make them a force is remarkable. And we won the Europa League last year. What did we do? Saw it all. We were in trouble at Christmas. What did we do? Saw it all. What have we done before that? Saw it all. So yeah, if we have they're going to 300 events a season, and I'm not sure that they're going to help the team. May help the day for some of the others, and that's unfortunately that me being cynical. It's cynicism based on experience, sadly.
Yeah, I understand your cynicism, and I'm well aware of how you feel about it. I have a question to
Yeah,
ask you, and you
yeah,
might not take well to it, but anyway, I'm going to ask you in a way, and I'm going to ask you in a way that I hope you won't dodge around it. We had an episode
ever
a few
got
weeks
some.
ago about booing
Yeah, yeah.
our players. Do you feel that the booing could have affected your team? The players on the pitch could have affected their performances and brought you, assisted you to get to this position.
Do you think the booing made us play as badly as we're playing or worse? Is that what you mean?
Well, well, there's an argument
No,
there that booing doesn't encourage players to play well. And we've had out on this. I don't think it's a productive thing. And what I'm saying to you now is, if you're relegated, would you acknowledge that booing might have been a contributing factor to it?
no, because I don't agree with that. I think that's absolutely not the case at all. And I think anyone who would try to attribute that would be not looking at what really happened. We've gone on about the booing and misinterpreted that often. What I was saying and what people were saying, what our questionnaire was saying was in certain circumstances. And in Tottenham circumstances, the ownership had led us so badly that we had to find some way of expressing our displeasure, as well as spend a fortune on tickets, on the ground, on season tickets, on merchandise, as well as spending a fortune. We were showing our displeasure at the performances and also at the ownership. And I stand over that because it's not the booing got us here, it's them. And they cannot, let's not let people get away with, oh, the fans booed, therefore we got relegated. No, the fans were booing because we could see what was happening and where we were going.
Okay, let's bring it back. Let's bring it
Okay.
back to if you're going down to watch kids playing football, 12 years old, and you're on the sideline. And some of
Yeah,
these guys might get paid a lot of money, but they're young, vulnerable people. And if you're standing on the sidelines and you're booing them, would you do it to a 12-year-old kid playing football to try and get the best out of them? I wouldn't.
No, but that's a 12-year-old kid who's an amateur, who's a youngster against someone in their mid-20s who's a multi-millionaire, who needs a kick in the backside. But the booing was against that. But also, you need to hear this. Finally, was against the ownership, against the whole organisation, who are responsible for the mess they've put us in, not the fans. The fans have turned up in their thousands, paid a fortune. You know what I mean? They've turned up in their fortune.
I understand.
And it isn't good enough because of look where we are in the table. You know what I mean?
I understand the unrest about your owners. I do understand the unrest about the owners. I just don't. I'm not sure it's the right time to do it as well. You're trying to get your team to get the best result out of the game. And
we can agree to disagree.
We'll have to agree to differ on it.
That's fine. Yeah. But I mean, the support it got against Forest. It wasn't booing Forest stuff. Does that day? There's nothing to do with the booing. There's a
no,
which is nonsense. Frankly, the Spurs fans have been wonderful in terms of their support of their team over the years when we've been let down and let down and let down again. This year it's come to a head, and it's a straw that's broken the camel's back, so to speak. And I stand with everyone who's saying that we are expressing our displeasure. There are other ways to do it, as some people said, but we don't often have, not turning up and all that kind of thing is no good either. We want to give the team as big a shout as we can, but the team needs to return something too, So it's irrelevant to where we are. Yeah.
Okay. Well, agree to differ. Vital weekend coming up.
Yeah.
West Ham have Wolves on Friday night. As we discussed last week, on Saturday morning, you could be waking up in the relegation zone. My personal view, having watched football all this weekend, is that I think that it will. I think Spurs will get enough to crawl out of this and this trouble. But I did look at your record lead up to this podcast. I looked up the home performances, the lack of winning a game. You haven't won a game in 2026. I looked at it and I kept on saying, this can't be right. It can't be right. It's just not. It's not that bad, but it is that bad. Your performance. So Sunderland, you said Sunderland are on a flyer at the minute. Do you think you can tame them next weekend, Sunday? I think it's Sunday afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's possible. Current form, if Tudor had still been there and we're still playing the same way, probably not. Because I did genuinely think with a chance against Palace and Fulham to get something. I was being very optimistic at that time. I think it could be if Spurs could walk out at Stadium of Light, nearly said Roker Park, Stadium of Light in the bottom three, well then nobody will have to explain anything to them about what they need to do. And that's at least a point. Now, I think for all Sunderland's great performances this year, and there have been, not least at Tottenham's ground and also at Newcastle there a couple of weeks ago, I do think we'll have a chance. I do think we'll have a chance against them, and I just hope we'll take it.
Well, on that, have you got injuries coming back? Have you players that are injured? Is there a few coming back?
We hear all these things. I've nearly stopped listening to them. Kudus was coming back and then he was injured again. Kulusevski's talking about his World Cup chances, not the chances of playing for us. So I don't know. Madison giving up, others I'm not sure about. I mean, Benton, the two I would, Bergval, I would look back properly. Archie Gray, those guys with heart who will give it a go, and they keep going to the end.
Gray's playing for the badge. He's the only guy I could say looks to be playing for the badge. Tell looks fantastic as well. Tell looks a great wee player.
Okay, but Tell, I just think he gets led down blind alleys. I think they usher him out to the wing a wee bit too much. And his corners against Forest were replicas of each other, and none of them were any good. With Forest defence and their goalkeeper, I think we needed maybe a short corner or one to the near post, 6-7 yards out. But anyway, what would I know? I do like Tell. I like what he's trying to do, and I want him to play well. on.
It reminds me a bit of Spence, to be honest. It reminds me a bit of Spence. When Spence with us, he was playing a wee bit further up the pitch on the year that we won the playoff, and he was playing a bit further up the pitch. And he reminds me of him a wee bit.
Colin in there as a defensive midfielder, someone with more, star maybe. We need Spence. We need the real Spence to turn up on Pearl or on Dougie on the other side, probably, and see how it goes. But I think we need Romero and Van den Ven to have a good look at the mirror and come out and really do their best and help us. The way they played in certain games last season, we really need that. We don't need Van den Ven.
I think Spence is the player that basically seemed to turn against Tudor. He seemed to turn against Thomas Frank before that. He wouldn't shake his hand coming off the pitch. So clearly he's somebody who wears his heart on his sleeve and didn't. So if you dig in and if they dig in and believe in the manager and new manager bounds, but I do think that this weekend is vital for you. It's absolutely vital. You know, we've got this wee tiny cushion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
we'll just wait and see.
West Ham, I think we probably all got ourselves in the bin. We're expecting them to beat Wolves. Now, Wolves are no dozers either. We've got to go to Wolves too. So, they're no dozers, as I would say. A better team than the league position. I think they were terrible in the first part of the season. Yeah. I watched them, and oh my God, the Premiership. But Edwards seems to have got it together. They probably had the conversation and said, look, we're going down, so get us ready to go up again, in a modified fashion, with the loss of a couple of key players. And I think he seems to be doing that. And a couple of good coming back against Brentford and others, they've done okay. So it may not be that either Spurs or West Ham will get a full return against Wolves. But as long as we get the same number of points against them as West Ham, that'll do me. I'm not
blindside you with a question. I don't want to blindside you with a question, but I have a question that I was asked the other night. Is this a bad season for all teams in that there's no competitiveness other than at the top of the league? Or is it a case that they're a lot more competitive and that's why the league is in the shape it's in?
Yeah, it's a good question. And probably whoever asked it maybe said you maybe a better question than you realise. And let me use an example. I had said that a few weeks ago that I had expected all the English teams to beat their European opponents. I said I even thought maybe Spurs would pass Atletico. And to be honest, had we took the first 17 minutes out, we probably would have, But it didn't work out like that. And what's my point? My point is that maybe en masse, one big commodity, the Premier League isn't as strong as it thinks it is, But and the problem is for any league, and the Americans understand this because they control their professional sports, the draft system, and so on. Competition is the lifeblood, and when there's no competition or excitement or something to play for, what's the point?
Yeah,
you play for pride and all that. Yeah. But I think there needs to be something to play for. And if teams pull away too far, I've left too far behind, or pull away too far at the top, sort of kills that excitement. I think it might be a case that the mid range from maybe position 6-7 downwards is all very competitive, and all of good teams. Just a bit of injuries can adjust. A few injuries can affect them and end up. Andy's listening to us. Please throw a comment in the section and please like and subscribe. Sorry, Colin, you were saying there. Well, you probably be competitively bad, and maybe some of the teams are. I have to say, I still think on paper for it are frauds being down there. When I look at some of the players, I've said this before, I'm not only blowing smoke, but when I look at some of the names and their abilities, I wonder what they're doing there. I think they've more good key players than any other teams, including Spurs, in the bottom 8.
They had a training session this week, an open training session at the City Ground.
Yeah.
7,000 fans turned up to see it. 7,000 fans a few years ago would have been a good crowd for watching one of the matches we were playing. 7,000 to watch an open training game. And I know a few
Yeah.
people that was at it, and they said it was like a family event. The players were over getting photographs taken. The Forest family sort of thing there is there again, arms around one another, talking. The manager's talking to the fans. You're as important to us as we are to them. Blah blah blah. So hopefully that will continue on. So I'll talk about Forest now.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you expect? What do I expect? I don't know. We have Porto on Thursday night away. The lads are over to that.
Oh, you're not that. You're at the next one.
I'm at the next one at the City Ground. Porto coming to the City Ground. So I hope they come with a cushion, or with hopefully the leg isn't dead anyway against Porto. I think we've enough to get something out of this. We'll see that, and then we've got Villa at the weekend. So we've a tough weekend of football ahead of us as well. But this manager seems to be getting a song out of them now, and hopefully your manager will do the same. Hopefully he'll get it done as well, and you'll get new manager bounce. But it's a tough team to go to. Sunderland,
Well, what I see in the Forest scenario is tantalising in some way. You could have everything, in the sense that you could stay up and win the Europa League and be in the Champions League next season, like ourselves last season. It's a wonderful feeling. Or to do what scenario could happen, we could be knocked out by either Porto or Villa and go down, unlikely as that is. I think there's a lot more chance of you staying up.
No, it's a massive. See that win. See on the predictions, that up-tip that predicts who's going where in the Premier League and who's going to win and who's not. And we'll talk about the other football that was played at the weekend in a minute, because there's a lot of strange results and things are unfolding for a lot of people, including Arsenal. That win, before we played you, we were 40% chance of going down, and we're now in single figures chance. And you went
that shows what a difference one win can make.
You went up to nearly 30% chance of going down, but it's all about but it's massive how one game can make a difference. On that, the Arsenal are out of another cup. Liverpool were destroyed by Man City, which was a surprising result as well. They capitulated completely to Man City. Did you watch it?
I did, and I watched it with interest. I am an admirer of Guardiola. I just watched, I think he just has something. I think there's some others. 3 years maybe that have been unlikable, maybe in terms of managers. You're going right back to when I was young boy. It was Busby and Bill Nicholson and Shankly and Harry Carrigan. All these great names coming up through the years. Clough, of course, and Keith Burtonshaw for us, and other names with the big teams. Bob Paisley, blah blah blah. But in recent times, probably you had Jose Mourinho, who was Marmite, but I always admired how he got the results he wanted. Well, coldly. I wasn't always excited, but I remember one time the Chelsea fullback, I mentioned this before, a getaway at City was following the ball up, and he suddenly reached the halfway line and stepped on it as if it was electricity and stayed. And clearly, Jose said to him, don't you go over the halfway line? And this guy remembered the rules, stopped dead, step back a step. And, that kind of tactic. But I watched Pep change players. Kyle Walker was a fantastic marauding fullback. He turned him into a snake, wander through the centre of the pitch and do all these things. And other stones and so on and so forth. And City are good that way, but I'm not sure. They seem to lose a little bit and then come back. And I don't know what's happened to Liverpool. Okay, if you're talking about the cup games, but something terrible's happened to them. And they did not compete. Over the years, they'd be able to compete. But there they didn't. And I don't know who's at fault anymore. I mean, my point about Pep was all these other managers seem to be geniuses, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. Slot comes in, wins the league, spends a fortune in the summer, and no one would have predicted where Liverpool are now. Van Dijk was a genius, in my opinion. You've heard me talk about him. And yet he gave away a penalty and was at fault for another goal. I think, sadly, he's fallen victim of the top player who's lost a yard or lost something and is frustrated that they can't get it back. I think I saw that with Shearer.
I think it's a combination of a few things. I think the player they lost, was it Jota that was killed in the car crash? I think that was a big effect in the dressing room, and it has to be a big effect in the dressing room, Colin. You can't say somebody you train and play with for years.
How could it not be?
Yeah, exactly. I think that Salah has dropped off. Maybe it's because of that Salah's dropped, or maybe it's just age. I don't know. But he's going out at the end of the season. That's been announced.
Yeah.
I don't think the manager will be there next season either. I think he'll be gone.
His problem was Alonso, standing in the corner. Whether he'll be any better, who knows? But so that was my point. In terms, Arteta now, all of a sudden this was seen as an act of 7 years in the waiting, and what's happening now. I'm not going to tempt fate. I was delighted to see Southampton win more than Arsenal lose necessarily, because I have a soft spot for them. But what does it mean? For the last one, say Chelsea's 7-0 victory over Liverpool did nothing for the FA Cup or for TV coverage. I sat down to watch that and thought, God, the poor Port Vale manager who was on top of giving nothing away for the first 20 minutes and getting a few punches in and, blah, 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 laying a glove on Chelsea. Bang, what happened? This was all over. It was very sad. And Chelsea, of course, were wanting to, let loose a bit of steam by going for the 7 goals. But does it tell us, I'm asking you, maybe that, okay, Liverpool are punctured, that it means that, the 5th places will be for the Champions League going for grabs. But do City, a rejuvenated City, all of a sudden stay away in again? Because it did look on. Haaland looked up again. I
studied this at the weekend, Colin, because I'm very interested. They're going into that game tonight against Sporting in the Champions League, off the back of being dumped out of 2 cups. If they lose that game, the mentality can change very, very quickly. If you were talking to any Arsenal supporter recently, they would have said they were on for the quad. It's never been done before because it's literally impossible to do, and it's not realistic. Somebody might do it someday, but if you heard Piers Morgan on the radio, what other team in the world is going to beat as well? Southampton just have, and and tonight maybe Sporting might do. So if you look at the point structure of the league, they're 9 points behind. Man City have a game in hand, and they have to play Man City. So very quickly that can turn into 3 points ahead. And if Man City, and see, I heard somebody say in the radio, if the mentality gets into their head that they have to win this and they're not doing so well now and they've lost that and the negativity comes in, and then he has them standing on the pitch dancing with pens in between pens. And did you see that? Morodic. I don't know what he's thinking about, But anyway, they very much could be in trouble. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, back to your teams. New manager bounce for you at the weekend. Give me your predictions against Sunderland. I know you don't like doing predictions, but anyway.
1 each.
1 each. You would take a point at the minute, would you?
I think I have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have to.
I would take a point at the minute, and I actually think we will get a draw. I think it'll be a draw at the City Ground against Villa. I think it'll either be a draw or we'll win, to be honest. I just think we owe them one.
To be fair, Villa aren't decided where. Something's gone a wee bit there on them.
Yeah.
So I think they may be there for the taking. This might be the time to play them, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and we're on the rise. We are on the rise. We're there's you can feel the feel good factors back again, and maybe just maybe it's happening at the right time that we're not scared to go and meet Villa in the if the cup. I'm going to sorry to say this, Colin, but I think Sunderland are going to win at the weekend. I think.
Okay, thanks for that.
I'm just being honest. Like you've been honest with me in the past when I heard. I think Sunderland are going to be so up for it, but I hope you win it, and I hope this manager can bring something to the table that can change things for you very, very quickly. Because you have to ask the question: if he doesn't bring something that changes it quickly, what happens next? Where do you go next? What do? You can't change a manager again. Yeah,
simple as that. We're relegated. There's no use as last throw of the dice. There's no this is what we think will happen. We're down. That's it. So it starts on Sunday. And if I were he, I'd be saying it starts to it's already started. We're training now. There's good reports about the training and get on it, pick up the points. No, don't come to me crying. Don't worry to cry, but don't worry about all this. Do your jobs, do it well, and win. win, boys.
Yeah.
Harry Redknapp says from Sunday we start winning. So that's that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I just want to say, against Porto, do you think we can get over at Porto?
Yes,
Porto.
I think you can. I think over the
Yeah.
2 legs you'll win.
Okay.
Maybe a draw and a win here.
Okay, well,
Sorry,
I'm optimistic on that. And on a finishing note, I know several people travelled over. Travel safe. The Bull Charlie is on the move again.
Yeah.
He's flying
Thanks.
out tomorrow, so he's on the move again. And
All
there's
right,
a
go
few
to
others.
a beautiful,
So to
beautiful
all my
Spain.
Forest friends, travel safe. Bring home the bacon. Bring home the bacon, and I'll see you at the City Ground next Thursday night.
CYS. Cheers.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much. Good episode, Colin. Enjoyed the chat there. And if anybody's listening in, please like and subscribe to the channel and throw any comments in. We'll always address them the following week. Thanks very much, Colin. Good luck at the weekend with your game.
Paul.
And we will talk to you soon. Stay safe.